SBC Media.
Welcome to iGaming Daily, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe. Supported by SBC Summit Barcelona, the industry-leading conference bringing you the future of sports betting and iGaming.
SBC Summit Barcelona is the fastest growing sports betting and iGaming event in the industry, happening on the 19th to the 21st of September. Experience the entire global industry coverage under one roof, with 15,000 delegates, over 350 exhibitors, and so much more. Get your tickets now at sbcevents.com.
Luck be a lady today on iGaming Daily, brought to you by SBC Summit Barcelona. We're taking a break from the news today to discuss an equally important subject: how to get more women involved in leadership in the gaming industry, particularly at the conference level. And I have someone with an immense amount of experience when it comes to that. It is my pleasure to welcome the supreme, successful, sublime VP of Growth and Strategy for Americas at SBC, Sue Schneider. Sue, I'm so happy you're finally here.
That was quite an intro. You put some time and thought into that one.
I definitely Googled adjectives that start with SU and went through the list and picked some of my favorites. But it's true. I feel like everyone in gaming knows who you are, but for those who don't, can you give us just the elevator pitch of your background and why you are so well versed on the topic of women in gaming and how it's grown and changed over the years?
Sure. Basically, I've had a number of careers, but the gaming side has really kind of got started in '93. And got involved with a print riverboat gaming publication here in the U.S. and then put it online in '95, and then started putting on events for internet gaming beginning in '99. I had my own company called River City Group, which I subsequently sold to Clarion. And during that time, we had events all around the world. So it's been really fun to see that. I've been involved with some other events since then, and have when the Supreme Court decision happened in the U.S., I had our old staff saying, let's do it again. And I was like, no, let's not. And reached out to Raz and Andy at that point and said, look, if you're looking at coming over here, I can help you out. So
I love that you shot down the let's get the band back together, sequel just before it even got off the ground.
Well, when I started the River City Group, I was 49. So I wasn't going to start another one when I was whatever I was at the time, 67. No, I don't think so.
But you still work harder than all of us. So I don't know if it's I wouldn't call what you're doing retirement.
No, it's definitely semi-retirement. But, the thing is, I would never have weathered the COVID shutdown like SBC did. They immediately pivoted to digital, and I would have just thrown my hands up and say, okay, well, that's not happening. So, kudos to them for having that kind of flexibility and being innovative.
Yeah, I hate to be this self-serving, rah-rah our company person, but part of the reason you're here today is because SBC is making a point to kind of go out there and ask women how they can get more involved in our events. And part of that was last month an event in Las Vegas that got together what looks like from the photos an incredible group of executive level leadership women in gaming. And you were there. Can you tell us a little bit about the event, what the intent was, and what you guys talked about?
Sure. Basically, I think I would need to preface it with how hard it is to have good representation. It really is difficult. That's really kind of been one of my priorities with, in the past and with SBC. And, given the number of women that are in senior management positions and a variety of things and even startups, there's just, we still have a long way to go. So it makes getting good representation in the conference, which I help with, the conference planning, difficult. So actually, Nikki Fields, who is one of our relationship folks, basically put together, we were going out there for some meetings to Las Vegas, put together this great group. And we had about 25 women in the room in a closed door session and said, look, what can we be doing to try to make more presence for senior women that are in the industry, and how can we do this in terms of getting speakers, in terms of networking events, what's appealing to you, that sort of thing. So we got some really, really good feedback. But I think it was people were kind of surprised at the gesture of even reaching out to ask. So that in that regard, it was really useful, I think.
Yeah, I haven't been in this as long as you have, but I have been in it a while, and I feel like when I first started, we were still kind of just not satisfied, but we knew the best we were going to do is be offered these token spots on panels. And that if there was an HR panel or a panel just like how to exist as a woman in gaming, then those were our opportunities. But those like big name panels that were the really meaty, juicy, interesting topics, we would get told like, you just don't have the resume to be up there. Was that kind of a sentiment? I feel like we feel like that's not the standard anymore, and we need to do better.
Well, and partially we have more of a pool. Kelly Keenan and I, she is one of the founders with All In Diversity Project, have started during COVID facilitating a women CEO group. And we've now identified 70 female CEOs in gaming. Now that's all across gaming. It could be payments, could be a marketing company, that sort of thing. And it's globally. So it's still not a very big number, but it's way better than it was.
70 is shocking to me. I mean, in the best way possible. But yeah, that's incredible that we're moving so much. I'm curious your thoughts on this. I've had these conversations with women a lot. You hear people say, oh, it's just gaming and it's tough for women to get in gaming. Is it just a gaming issue, or is it kind of compounded by the fact that with online gaming in particular, it's also kind of a tech industry issue as well?
That is part of it. And the sports betting side is even worse in terms of that, because, there are, particularly like the trading rooms, there are whole parts of this that really are pretty much in many cases about 100% men. So some of that is beginning to change, but it's slow going. But yeah, the tech side of it, there are a couple of women that run Quarter 4, Daniela and Kelly, and they will say that that's where they come from. They come out of the tech side, and they will say that that's an ongoing issue there. Same with finance, trying to find, VCs that have women as part of it. Kelly even mentioned to me that only 4% of VC money goes to women-owned startups, which I thought was pretty appalling. So it kind of cuts across all those different sectors that make up the gaming industry.
Yeah, I have you can go back on SBC Americas and look at this. We had a kind of paired set of interviews with Lindsay Slater from GeoComply and Annika Howard from Wonder Nation, talking about how it's difficult, especially on the supplier side. It's just so hard. The barrier to entry is so high for some of these suppliers to even get in the room with operators, because you need licensure, you need compliance, you need all of these things that, like, unless you're one of the many apps that is going to help with customer acquisition, I feel like for minority-owned businesses, women or otherwise, just getting the resources to reach that level to even get in the conversation is one of the big sticking points in terms of entering the industry.
Well, that is the reality. And if you talk with any of the entrepreneurs that are out there in particular, and that's more the startup size, but even as you get into larger companies, it continues to be an issue. We've got, again, we've made some headway, but we really have a long way to go with that. But part of that, I think, is seeing, not only how women are moving up, but how our allies are really kind of pushing that on their side too. I remember being down in Australia, and they had a women in gaming and hospitality group that grew up down there. And the gentleman from one of the operators that was funding the startup of that association said, I'm a girl dad. I have 4 girls, and I want them by the time they grow up, I want them to have the same opportunities that I have. So I think that whole looking at the allies, as you said, with whether it's minorities, we work a lot with African Americans in gaming, and they appreciate the allies that they have also. So I think, looking at how to build that set of allies and giving them some guidance on how they can help is really, really important.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a simple issue, but Nikki Fields, as Sue referenced earlier, put together the event that, building that allyship. I think we have these great events like our Global Gaming Women Breakfast, which if you're going to be in SBC Summit Barcelona, there will be one of those. So be sure to check it out. I love having these women's events to just like take a break from being one of the only women in the room. But there's also opportunities there, for kind of the men out there. What would you say is the appropriate way to just start being an ally?
Well, I think to just voice your support, making sure that the women that are in your company or your organization do have some good paths forward. One of the funny things that came up, and there was actually some consensus on that, is a lot of the women that were in the room we spoke with in Las Vegas were saying, I won't be on a DEI panel anymore. I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about what it is I do every day and be, valued in that regard in terms of my expertise in that. So it makes it a little, a stand that they're taking that, look at me on my merits in terms of the work that I do.
I appreciate that because I love that we're having these conversations, but I do think we maybe have reached the point on these panels where it's nice enough to discuss what we're doing, but it's probably time to start having more forward-looking discussions of how we can actually change and grow.
And part of it is, again, I try to get some diversity on our panels. We don't always make it. We're still struggling like every other conference producer out there. But, the whole issue of how do you bring good people forward, even though they may or may not have the titles yet, but yet you realize that they have expertise. We've had some cases where we've invited a woman to speak, and by the time she goes to her supervisor, it kind of gets turned around into, well, why wasn't I asked to speak? I think we all know that happens. And one of the suggestions that the women in Las Vegas in our discussion said is start at the top, start with the CEO and say, look, we're committed to trying to bring in some new faces, some new talent, some new perspectives. And we would like to ask this person. And, so I think protocol wise, that's probably something that we're going to start doing so that we can get that buy-in at the top and don't get kind of subverted as it makes its way through the chain of command there.
Yeah. I mean, it's so frustrating when situations like that do happen. For women out there who maybe want to be involved in a conference, but don't know kind of how to get their name out there, what advice would you give to someone who is maybe at the manager level and is a woman who's eager to get involved?
Well, I think part of it, and we're exploring doing some webinars on some of these topics. Part of it is just personal brand building. LinkedIn is obviously probably the social media tool of choice, at least in our industry in a lot of ways. So making sure that you know how to use that, making sure that you have a good presentation of yourself. I'm a personal fan just because of my own experience with really getting involved with industry associations, whatever they may be. I ended up chairing, we had a group that started in 96 called the Interactive Gaming Council. I chaired that for 8 years. I was we would have 120 members in the room and there would be 4 women. And, but not only did it help me, I think, but it helped my business. I mean, because of that, I was able to be seen as a kind of a expert on the industry. So, I really feel like personal brand building and getting involved as a volunteer, in quotes, with various groups and associations and efforts in the industry is really, really a good way to go.
Yeah, I would echo on the brand building thing too. I will take a minute. I'm going to heap praise on you again, Sue. I'm sorry, but it's because I saw that women like you were able to succeed in the industry and still be people with opinions and takes and ideas on things that for me, I think a lot of my personal brand became being on Twitter and not just saying, here's what happened, but being able and willing to kind of put my thoughts out there of, hey, this is a trend that I'm seeing. Hey, this is insight on top of the information. So if I could make a suggestion on the brand building side, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but be yourself and don't edit yourself too much on these posts, because I think especially on the conference side, you guys want people who are interesting and have something to say that's different from what everyone else is saying, right?
Well, and you came up through the poker world, which is probably some of the more, I don't know, mean, maybe, on social media.
Consumer facing poker it's a different beast for sure. I definitely, you know what though, like between consumer facing poker and consumer facing sports betting, literally nothing rattles me anymore in terms of the Twitter hate. And I've gotten not nice things said many times, but I guess I hate to say build a thick skin, because that makes it my job, the woman's job to be okay with people being awful to you, but you do develop a thick skin.
Yeah, well, I give you credit for that. I'm not sure I can do that part. But you know what? It's interesting. Some of the other things that people were talking about in that meeting that we had, we're talking about like how intimidating it can be to speak if you've not done it before. So part of what they were saying was, number one, to let people know you get together with your panelists beforehand. You know what questions are coming your way for the most part. There might be some flow that would bring you off in a different direction. And one person pointed out that really, if you're on a discussion panel, you might be speaking 7 minutes out of a 50-minute or 60-minute session.
If even. Yeah.
Right. So those were all really good points on kind of demystifying those kind of things so that they don't seem as scary. Because I've very many times invited people to speak, and they were like, "Oh no, I just can't do that. It would just, I couldn't do that." And in many cases, I've seen people who told me that and then turned around and forced themselves to do it, and now they speak all over, and they're really good. So part of it is that part of just getting over that fear. And so I think again, trying to take hit on those points one by one and say, look, it's not going to be as scary as you think.
Yeah. And to go back to like the idea of allyship too, on this point, if you are a company wondering how to help, put programs and education and personal improvement within your work structure. Yeah. Make time to give people media training, to give them opportunities to learn about public speaking and get better at it, because it's going to help your brand at the end of the day.
Exactly.
If someone is well-spoken and eloquent and competent and going out there and speaking about you in a sincere way.
And that's another thing that was brought up. And there were actually a couple women there who said, our company should be doing that for our management, at least, if not, broader. So again, things that allow people to get a better comfort level is the kind of thing, whether it's media training, public speaking training, whatever. Those are the kind of very concrete suggestions that we heard that night, which was really good.
Yeah, we do a lot of internal training on the media side at SBC. It's always been my pet project wherever I am to provide professional development for people. And thankfully, I am a literal speech nerd. I lettered in speech in high school. So we do a lot with public speaking. We might be doing more on that front on the conference side. You mentioned some webinars. So, keep an eye out, guys. We're working on some ideas, and there may be some announcements in the future. In the meantime, Sue, we've got SBC Summit Barcelona coming up next month. Would love to hear from you what you're most excited about for the conference.
Well, I'm most daunted by having 7 channels of conference going on at one time. That's always scary. And that's a record for me. That's for sure. I have not been involved, in seeing that kind of thing very much. I always enjoy the content at our events, but I really enjoy the networking. Again, as you mentioned, we are going to we started doing this really at almost every conference, doing the Global Gaming Women Breakfast, which have been really, really good. So enjoy that, and just having some fun with folks in town. So it's it's always a good thing. I've got a past history with an event called EIG that we ran in Barcelona for many years. We did that as a joint venture with Clarion, so very familiar with that town, and know that it's a big draw. So we should have a good time. And I think learn a lot. And the part I like is when I see deals announced like in the month or two after that I know probably, were germinated at an event like that. Those are the kind of very concrete outcomes that I like to see.
That's awesome. I got to spend my birthday last year sipping kava with Sue on the rooftop of a bullfighting ring turned into a mall. So I can only hope we do something equally out there and surprising for my birthday this year. I can't wait to see you out there. Guys, you can head over to SBC events and find out more about Barcelona. Be sure to head over and register for that. We've got lots of news coming up on SBC Americas as we head into football season. And Sue, we're going to have to get you back on here again to talk about news and things like that, because your insights are always exceptional. So we'll find a way to get you back on this pod here shortly.
Good. Sounds like fun. Thank you.
All right. In the meantime, we will see you next time on iGaming Daily.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of iGaming Daily, brought to you in conjunction with SBC Summit Barcelona, being held at the Fira Barcelona Montjuic on the 19th to the 21st of September. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News Network, or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.